Hello, everyone. I'm Donna Fiducia.
And I'm Don Neuen, and this is Cowboy Logic Radio.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. When their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance.
Welcome to Cowboy Logic Radio, everyone.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Don Neuen.
Man, is that...
And I'd like to welcome you to tonight's riveting episode of Cowboy Logic Radio.
Really obnoxious.
Back to you, Donna.
Really, really obnoxious. Were you
I did that for room ambience.
I figured you were trying to be heard over the entire crowd last night.
Oh, yeah,
Georgia,
yeah.
Alabama game.
Yeah, that was... Well, here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. One of our affiliates, WLBB 1330 AM and 106.3 FM, broadcasts to both eastern Alabama and western Georgia. So there's a lot of homes that are divided here.
Family divided.
Yeah. I mean, you see license plates that are split down the middle. You see homes that are split down the middle. You see married couples that are split down the middle. Parents and their children that are split down the middle. I mean, it's a serious rivalry.
Pickup trucks with huge flags for one or the other.
Yeah, and for those of you that don't live in the Southeastern Conference region for college football, let me explain what's going on.
I know, because I can't stand it, truthfully.
Yeah, well, you were into the game.
I was into this game.
Last night, ladies and gentlemen, the Georgia Bulldogs faced off against the Alabama Crimson Tide, and it was another nail biter. It went into overtime, and during the first overtime, the Alabama Crimson Tide ended up winning the game. Hat tip to all the Alabama fans. We, on the other hand, Donna and I were rooting for Georgia, and we were hoping that they would pull off a national championship. But Alabama
always wins.
Alabama,
However,
I believe, has their number 7. And, there's a lot of people at Holy Ground that we know that, and a lot of friends that we have out here in West Georgia that are Alabama fans, and a big hat tip to them. But I got to tell you, and I can't pronounce this young man's name, but the quarterback for Alabama that came into the game at the beginning of the second half absolutely won the game.
And what did he say? All glory goes to God. You hear that, commie libs on the left? Yep. All glory goes to God. And you know what? The Alabama has an elephant for their mascot. I don't know what it is, why it's an elephant, but maybe there's something there.
Well, the reason that that's their mascot, Donna, is they can't create some kind of a tidal wave or a blood wave or a Crimson Tide wave. You know,
something with
they had to have something that they could put into a suit and have them run around on the field. So they have an elephant.
I have a question, though. I mean, I'm not into this at all. You took me to the university.
You sounded like you were into it last night.
I said some Jersey Italian.
Yeah, you got a little Italian on me.
Yeah, like sack that something.
No, don't say it.
However, I was really proud when Donald Trump came out there. I was so proud of Donald Trump. And you know what really got me? He stood out there with the American flag, and I'm thinking, I wonder what's going to happen with the players. Are they going to take a knee? Well, they didn't even let them have the chance. The players weren't even on the field for the national anthem. So I guess that's college football's way of getting around the problem.
Yeah, but I gotta bring something to your attention that you may not know. Mm-hmm. As the Alabama team was coming out of the locker rooms, the Sporting News has a video of the Alabama running back Bo Scarborough yelling F Trump.
Really?
As the players made their way onto the field.
Act.
What a classless nothing.
Yeah.
Bo Scarborough and those that support him ought to be ashamed of him.
Well, you know what? This goes to show that it goes so much deeper than that. This always goes back, in my opinion, to the public education system and the brainwashing of these useful idiots. Look up Saul Alinsky, folks. That's what you are, a useful idiot if you can't think for yourself. You know what they ought to do?
Well, Bo Scarborough is a classless pig.
No, they ought to stick his ass on a plane and send him to Venezuela for a week and let him see what true socialism really is.
Yeah.
That's what they ought to do. They ought to do that with all of these ingrates that sit here and say they hate this country, but they leave the crap country that they grew up in and they come here. Why do they want to come here if this country's so bad? Because the left gives out freebies. But this just makes no sense to me. And the problem is they don't get educated. And that is exactly, when you think about it, what the left wants and what the one world order wants. You got to have control, you got to have money, and you got to have the situation where the people have no freedoms. And that's exactly what's happening.
And yes, I totally agree with you. But the bottom line with regard to Scarborough, we don't know whether he is, educated or not. Quite frankly, I've never even heard of the guy until tonight. But
here's the point. Most NFL players, because they've been coddled so much, if you were to give them a test, they're about at an 8th grade level.
Well, granted that there's a lot of tutoring and assistance that goes on in college sports, especially basketball and football. But I just want to bring attention again to this Bo Scarborough schmuck, because he is a classless pig. And thankfully, and again, I can't pronounce this character's name, this guy's name.
The quarterback for Alabama.
Tagovailoa, or whatever his last name is. But he is a class act, and he was a gentleman, and he was gracious, and he was well-mannered, and he was humble. And on top of that, he played a stellar second half, and in my humble opinion, he won the game for Alabama.
Yeah, he certainly did.
He most certainly did.
He scrambled for first downs. He made some great throws. The other thing is, I did notice, though, contrary to what you were saying about the other guy who made the comment about
Bo
Trump,
Scarborough, the schmuck.
Don't even bother saying his name.
Well, I have to say it, and then I add to it the schmuck, the classless pig.
But we did see a lot of the players in prayer before the game.
Yeah, we did.
So, there's something to be said for that as well. And again, this kid,
but how about the pussification of ESPN or the NCAA, where they kept both teams in the locker room during the national anthem because they, quite frankly, were scared that they couldn't control the behavior, and have them come out and all of a sudden kneel in the SEC, where that's not going to go over very well.
In front of the President of the United States, too.
Yeah.
Trump was awesome. He was awesome when he came out there.
He was bold. He spent a lot of time in the middle of that field. You know that?
But the tide will not be denied for another year.
Well, congratulations to Alabama and all the Alabama players and fans. And I would like to single out a huge Alabama fan that I work with. He's one of our colleagues and a friend in the rock and roll bus industry, Lamar Sanford. Hat tip to you, sir. Your team won. Yeah. Our team lost.
Oh, well. But they are an elephant. That's their mascot, Alabama. So the Republican Party won, I guess.
Yeah, but hey, Donna, while we were watching the game last night, you were flipping through headlines and whatnot, and I believe that there was a man that was set free.
There was?
Yeah.
You want to enlighten me on
I'm
that?
trying to remember what his... I'm drawing a blank on his name. Levon. Or what's his name?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You told me about this.
I have no
All right,
idea what
hang in there, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to pull this up so that I can re-educate Donna on what she educated me. Bundy.
Yes, Cliven Bundy got released.
What did I say? Levon?
Levon.
Yeah. Must have had a Bo Scarborough moment.
But the thing is, or a Joe Scarborough moment, one of two.
Yeah, the morning schmo.
Cliven Bundy got released. Folks are going to say, ooh, who was that? Well, he was the rancher and his sons who got arrested. I'm not sure, and I really do need to dig deeper into this, but I believe a lot of the property they were fighting over is where the uranium is being mined. And this was happening at the time of Uranium One. Now, I might be speaking out of turn here, and this might be a reason why Cliven Bundy is out of there because they realize they better not bring him up on charges or else they might find some other bigger charges.
You sound conspiratorial.
I am getting that way because most of the things I thought were conspiracies before apparently aren't. They really are happening. And that's what's really scary.
Like Bo Scarborough has class.
Or Joe Scarborough for that matter.
I wonder if they're related.
I don't think so.
Maybe.
I don't think so. But it's very interesting to see. And
Joe just has lighter pigmentation.
But thank God for Clive and Bundy. Thank God for Clive and Bundy and the ranchers.
Or Levon Bundy.
Levon.
Where did I come up with that?
What the heck are you talking about? So do you think Roseanne Barr would be a better president than Oprah Winfrey? I can't say that with a straight face.
Listen, you go back to the Cowboy Logic Radio archives probably 6 months to a year, and I guarantee you're going to find an archive statement where we brought up the fact that a big concern for 2020 is going to be Oprah Winfrey.
You did say that. And
yes, I
have
did.
Been saying that. And or Michelle Obama.
Yeah, but Okra is the concern.
Okra has billions. But there's also
I don't like okra. Do you enjoy okra?
I like it fried. Yes, I do. As a matter of butter, battered and fried.
I wonder if Oprah Winfrey was ever fried when she was a youngster. Now that pot's legal and you can get high whenever you want to.
Sort of.
Jeez.
Not if Jeff Sessions had it.
Jeff's trying to do something about it. Quite honestly, that should be up to the states, if you ask me.
I think Jeff Sessions has bigger fish to fry here.
Let me make another statement, okay, Donna?
Yeah.
Here's the deal.
What?
I don't think Jeff Sessions should have been ever nominated and placed in as AG.
That's the other
I keep saying that. Here's the deal. One of the big things they teach you in business, and one of the big things that I learned in all the years that I've been working in business, is you never create a void. Mm-hmm. You never do it. Yep. If you're going to move somebody out of a position, let's say you're going to fire them, you're going to promote them into another position, you're going to move them from the Senate to being the AG, you make sure that you don't create a void. And that was a poor business decision by the Trump administration or Trump. I don't know who made it. I'm sure he put his stamp on it. Yep. But he created a void in the Senate. And we can't afford voids in the Senate. And somebody's talking about moving Tom Cotton into a position. Big mistake. Don't go to the Senate. Don't go to the House to replace these cabinet positions. Do not do it. You create a void. Back to you, Donna.
Yes. Okay, Don. Thanks. But
that was quite insightful, don't you think?
It was, and I do think Jeff Sessions is not. Yeah. Okay.
I'm Don NEUEN, ladies and gentlemen, and I will be at the South Carolina Tea Party Coalition Convention January 20th, 21st, and 22nd. And along with me will be Donna Fiducia.
Yes, and I wanted to get to
But I'm Don NEUEN, and I will be there. Thank you.
I think by the end of the weekend, you'll have the entire crowd yelling, I'm Don NEUEN.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
But the Golden Globes did happen over the weekend, and I have an ulterior motive for mentioning this.
The what?
Yeah, those things.
The what?
Yeah, where one of those other award things where Hollywood pats themselves on the back. But all the women who were the hashtag Me Too jerks.
What are you talking about?
They were wearing black.
But for what?
Because they were trying to show.
What event?
The Golden Globes.
I wasn't even aware that took place.
All right. Well, I'm trying to tell you something here. If you listen.
About what?
They happened over the.
What are you talking about?
Never mind. Anyhow.
Back to you, Donna.
Meryl Streep was there. She's the biggest Harvey Weinstein kisser on earth. And then all of a sudden, she's holier than thou.
Hey, so's Oprah Winfrey.
And yeah, Oprah Winfrey, yes.
Who called for white people to be killed.
Yes. In fact, that's been circulating on the internet as soon as she said she might run in 2020.
We'd like to thank Michael Savage for bringing that back up.
And there's pictures of her kissing Harvey Weinstein, folks. So just get over that. Meanwhile, our good buddy Kathleen
That's like kissing Louis Litt from the show Suit.
No, I'd rather kiss Louis Litt. I love that show.
You
Louis
do.
Litt is a perfect Harvey Weinstein, though, if you think about it.
Yeah, but Louis Litt has class.
He does have class. He's a sweetie. I love that.
Unlike Oprah Winfrey or any of these other schmucks that were at, what was that thing you were talking about?
Golden Globes, honey.
What is that?
It's an award ceremony for movies and other stupid things.
As if anyone cares.
Get to the point here.
Please do.
Kathleen Willie, our good friend,
Oh, this is good.
tweeted something to the effect of, she, Juanita Broderick, nor any of the other sexually abused and raped women by Bill Clinton were invited to the Golden Globes, and she had her little black dress ready to wear.
I bet she did, and I bet she looked like $1 million in it. And I also bet that she would not have been showing half, a third, 1/4, 1/8 of the cleavage and skin that these skanks in black dresses were wearing at the Golden Globes.
Someone tweeted, if you don't want to be
Agree
treated,
with me, Donna.
I agree, because someone tweeted, if you don't want to be treated like, or tweeted, if you don't want to be treated like a boob, stop showing them.
That's very good. That's
But,
very good.
so,
Let me remind everybody, though, before you
segueing-
keep going on, that I'm Don Neuen and that I will be at the South Carolina Tea Party Coalition Convention January 20th, 21st, and 22nd in lovely Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
That's why
You need to be there. Talk about it, Donna.
I will be there. That's why I was bringing up Kathleen Willie, because she will be there as well.
Woohoo!
We need to tell her to bring her little black dress.
Yeah, I may wear a black dress.
Lieutenant Colonel Buzz Patterson, our buddy, is going to be there.
Maybe he will wear a black dress with me.
Maybe everybody should wear black dresses. That would be pretty damn funny, wouldn't it? I think that's what we should all do.
We should
Wear
dress up in black,
dresses.
all black.
They said Bannon might
Y
show up,
negro.
although I
Negro
think cut it down.
pantalones, negro camisa.
Did you see Bannon in a black dress? I don't think so.
I don't want to see Bannon at all, to be honest with you.
Daniel Greenfield, author and columnist, he's going to be there. I'm going down the list here now. Corey Lewandowski scheduled to be there. Looking forward to meeting him.
I refer to him as the C-Man. You'll notice that when we connect with him.
You will?
Yeah. What's up, C-Man?
Okay.
He
President
calls me D-Man.
and CEO of Lewandowski Strategic Advisors.
We know what he
obviously
does. Get
had
back to
a
the names, Donna.
major part in getting Donald Trump elected. James E. Mitchell, Ph.D., helped develop the CIA's Enhanced Interrogation Program. How cool is that? Of course,
I will
Obama
refer.
threw
I
all
refer
that
when I
out.
talk to him. I call him Doc.
Okay.
What's up, Doc?
Yep.
He says, "What's up, D?"
Hey, get a load of this. Tom Fitton, Judicial Watch. Let me tell you something. If you donate to anything, Judicial Watch is what you need to donate to.
You heard it here, ladies and gentlemen, on the Milano's Pizza guest speaker rundown. Back to you, Donna.
Is that what that is?
Yes.
Joe Dugan, of course, is the executive director of the whole thing.
I call him Hey Joe.
Yes, and we're going
From the days of Hendrix, Jimi Hendrix. Hey
we're going to be
Joe.
talking to him coming up in
You
the
know what
show
he
as
calls
well.
me?
What?
Don Neuen.
Does not. Admiral Ace Lyons is going to be there. Dr. Peter Vincent Pry. That is one scary individual.
Yeah,
Let me
but
tell
he's
you
good.
something. He is good. You thought Vincent Price was spooky. Dr. Peter Vincent Pry is the real deal. Because
Yeah,
what he
he's-
talks about
he's,
is so
deep.
serious. And what a great guy. We've had him on the show.
He talks
What a
about he's
wonderful
an
man.
EMP expert, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you that have never listened to this show before,
He works on EMPs, and he has actually addressed Congress on the threats of EMPs, both from something like a North Korea threat or a solar flare. Which
and
is something
they appear to finally be
we're
listening.
looking for. Yeah, finally. Remember when he was on with Mark Levin? He was on Mark Levin's show probably a couple of years ago. I never saw
Mark looked like he
Levin-
was a deer in the headlights.
Exactly, and it takes a lot for Mark Levin to be really
Stump
taken
the
aback.
Levin.
And
Shock the Levin.
but rightly so, because we are vulnerable, and Dr. Peter Vincent Pry will be talking about that. Evan Sayet, who is a comedian.
Say it isn't
Say
so,
it ain't
Donna.
So, yes. He and I will be arguing about whether or not Bruce Springsteen
You
is
will.
a commie lib, but
You
we
will.
still love him.
He is
Gordon
funny.
Chang.
He is one funny guy.
Yes, Gordon
Chang is probably I would have to label Gordon Chang as the class act.
Yep. And we're going to be
Wouldn't
talking
you?
to him later on the show, too, to see what he's going to talk about at the South Carolina
I
Tea
guess I
Party.
better try to get him on the phone.
Yes.
You keep going through the list. I'll
Yes.
call Gordon.
Okay. And Stephen Coughlin will be talking to him. He's a former Joint Chiefs of Staff intel analyst. He will be there. John Guandolo, you've seen him on a lot of the TV shows. He's going to be there.
Gordon, hey, it's Don. Listen, we're in the middle of the first segment. Any chance you can join us? Yeah.
He'll be calling you?
Yeah, buddy.
Cool.
All right, cool.
Okay.
How's Lydia?
We,
How's the weather up there? Chilly?
It's cold in New Jersey.
That's cold. All right. Let's do this. How about segment 4?
Yeah, we'll be talking to him at the end of the show.
Cleanup hitter.
He's the cleanup batter.
We'll call you about 10:30, okay, buddy?
Yeah.
All right, man. Peace out.
All right, the Politichicks are going to be
I got him.
Anne-Marie Morel, I hear.
Donna, I got him.
And another Politichick would be Suzanne Shattuck. She's not with Politichicks, but
she's just a chick.
Yeah, and she's a very cool dude.
She's a hot chick.
Yes, she is. She has a show on our network.
But she doesn't have a hot chick attitude. Did you notice that, Donna?
No.
She's not stuck up.
No, she's not. She's very down to earth. She's very cool.
She's like a girl next door.
Kevin Jackson. The Kevin Jackson Show. We also have him on our network.
He's a hot chick,
he's
too.
Going to be there? No, he's not.
Kevin has a shiny crystal ball head.
Yes, he does. You've seen him on a lot of the Fox News Channel, among other stations.
I want to get a video, or at least a photo, of Suzanne Shattuck rubbing Kevin Jackson's head and making a wish.
So bad. Trevor Loudon's going to be there. He's not as bad as Kevin Jackson, but he's working his...
He's not from down under.
No, he's
from New Zealand.
He's from New Zealand. Our good buddy, he's going to be there. And he's a great author.
And maybe Victoria and I will play pool.
Yes, you could do that.
Which we've done during the radio show when they came to visit. Have you noticed, Donna, that about 85% of these guests are A, our friends, B, on our kitchen cabinet for talkamericaradio.us, and guests on our radio show?
It's very exciting to know these people.
That's because I'm Don NEUEN, ladies and gentlemen, and in 49 seconds we're going to go to break.
All right. We are going to be talking to Joe Dugan, who is the guy putting this whole thing together.
He's the big Joe.
Then we'll be talking to Stephen COUGHLIN. As I mentioned before, he is a security analyst and former Joint Chiefs of Staff Intel analyst. And Gordon Chang will be talking to us, obviously, coming up at 10:30 for the last segment, because you just got him on the phone and he agreed to do that.
Just talked him into doing it.
But see, if you're going to this, folks, go to South Carolina Tea Party Coalition.com. It's South Carolina Tea Party Coalition.com. It's going to be at the Crown Reef Convention Center and Beach Resort in Myrtle Beach, coming up in just a few weeks, January 20th, 21st, and 22nd. We hope to see you there, and we'll be back.
No, we won't, Donna, because I want to let the listeners know that anybody that comes to the South Carolina Tea Party Coalition Convention in Myrtle Beach, January 20, 21, and 22, I will be more than happy to autograph any of the other people's books that they bring with them. I'll be happy to do that for you. Ladies and gentlemen, all you need to do is ask, and we're going to be back after these short messages.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. Their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance. When cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. When their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance.
Check us out on the web at cowboylogic.us.
Hi, thank you for listening. My name is Ron Phillips, and I'm the owner and operations manager of Talk America Radio. It is with great pride that I offer you these two 24/7 streams of some of the finest talk radio programming in the country, but I need your support. Talk America Radio is a listener-supported network. That means we need your help to continue to offer the quality programming you're hearing right now. Please visit talkamericaradio.us and click the Support Us button. You can contribute monthly or send us a one-time amount. We'll put it to good use continuing to share the American voice. Thank you.
Welcome to Myrtle Beach, one of the most beautiful strands of sand on the East Coast. My name is Joe Dugan, and I'm the founder and executive producer of the South Carolina Tea Party Coalition Convention. This is our 6th anniversary this year, and we've gone to a new resort, the Crown Reef, to enable more people to come, enjoy our conference, and the beautiful weather here in Myrtle Beach. This year, I can promise you, although we have had outstanding conferences in the past, this convention will be our best ever. The theme for our convention will be President Trump's contract with the American people. It's the contract that you, the people, voted for the president to uphold. We will sing the praises of those who have upheld it and call out those who are standing in its way as he tries to make America great again. So come down, hear it firsthand. Our speakers are down here for 2 days. They want to meet you. We have a huge radio row. They want to interview you. We want to hear from you, folks. And we will give you some ideas to take home with you and spread throughout your neighborhoods. Mark your calendars now. It's an easy date to remember. It starts January 20th, just 1 year to the day from President Trump's inauguration, and we run from the 20th to the 22nd. Go to our website, SouthCarolinaTeaPartyCoalition.com. You can look at all the speakers that we're going to have this year, as well as look at speakers that we've had in past years. We're looking forward to seeing you all, folks, and please say a personal hello when you stop down here at our convention.
Hurry! Last year's event was near sellout, and this year's will be bigger than ever. So don't wait until it's too late. Book your room and convention package now. Go to SouthCarolinaTeaPartyCoalition.com. Excellent sponsorship opportunities are still available, so you can reach and equip the grassroots in our large exhibit hall and meeting rooms. Whether you wish to host an intimate meet and greet, a press conference, or a book signing, we have the space for you. This event will draw national media again this year. There's no better event for energizing and equipping the conservative grassroots than the South Carolina Tea Party Coalition Convention on Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Go to SouthCarolinaTeaPartyCoalition.com. Be there.
You're listening to your local news source, WLBB, News Talk 1330 and FM 106.3.
Hey everybody, they're back on again!
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts, when their hearts were filled with memories, bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glare. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance.
Welcome back to Cowboy Logic Radio. I'm Donna Fiducia.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Don Neuen.
Why are you being so subdued? Because you don't want to scare Joe Dugan away?
Yeah, because in about 2 weeks, I have to act professional 24/7.
That's impossible. That is absolutely impossible.
Well, maybe that's why he asked us to come this year.
I guess. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you a gentleman by the name of Joe Dugan, who is going to be our guest for this next half hour. He is the founder and executive director and producer of the South Carolina Tea Party Coalition Convention. You can find that at SouthCarolinaTeaPartyCoalition.com. It's going to be at the Crown Reef Convention Center and Beach Resort in Myrtle Beach on January, 20th, 21st, 22nd? We're going to get there earlier. But 20th, 21st, and 22nd?
I'm thinking about getting in there about the 12th.
Okay, here you go. So we can really prepare.
Yeah.
And you can shovel away some of the snow on the beach.
I can get my surfboard out and I can get my Speedo. I may wear a Speedo, ladies and gentlemen, so I would encourage all of you that would like to see that, show up at the South Carolina Tea Party Coalition Convention in lovely Myrtle Beach, January 20, 21, and 22. Back to you, Donna.
Well, right now it's what, Joe? 10 degrees?
Well, I just checked the weather forecast for that weekend, and we're going to be in the 60s.
Yay! That'd be nice to see.
Then I'm gonna be wearing a fur-lined Speedo because it's a little chilly out there.
That's
well,
really
all the
too
pools
much.
are heated, Don. So.
Too much information.
Well, hey, here's
TMI.
the thing. Michael Cutler lent me his, and that's
God,
that's the one that I'll be wearing.
That's even scarier.
All right, let's get down to some serious talk. Put on the game face, ladies and gentlemen, because this convention, Donna and I had the honor of attending, I think 4 times, and it's an absolute blast. And we are actually going to be participating in it this year, and we're really thrilled and excited that Joe Dugan, who again is the executive director and the founder of the South Carolina Tea Party Coalition Convention and Coalition, is with us right now. We're going to talk about this convention, and then I think, Donna, in hour 2, we've got 2 of the other speakers that are going to be on joining us.
Yes, we're going to be talking to Stephen COUGHLIN, who is a security analyst, former Joint Chiefs of Staff Intel analyst, who will be there, as well as our good buddy Gordon Chang, who knows just about everything going on as far as Asia is concerned, and China, and the guy with the button.
Gordon may take us to a good Chinese restaurant there in Myrtle Beach. Joe, are there any good Chinese restaurants? Because Gordon and Lydia have asked us out to dinner, and we want to take them someplace that they're going to feel totally comfortable with and enjoy.
Oh, man.
Well, if you're willing to pass up the parties that we're going to have in the evening, yes, there are. There are some great Chinese restaurants nearby.
No, I'm not willing to pass up those parties because they are a lot of fun.
Only my husband would tell Gordon Chang to find us a good Chinese restaurant.
Only your husband could get away with saying that to Gordon Chang.
God, this is so bad.
All right, here we go. Game face. Let's talk about some of these speakers, because this entire month, Joe, we are having as our guests people that you have lined up to speak, and let's talk about some of those key people, including the beautiful Donna Fiducia.
Well, I don't think we need
absolutely,
to talk about that.
Absolutely. But it truly is a remarkable group of American heroes and patriots that are coming to our convention. And Tom Fitton, who is every single day in the news with his Freedom of Information requests, getting Huma Abedin's emails released, and just digging into the lies and deceit and anti-American forces that we've dealt with for the past 8 to 16 years. And the aim of this convention is very serious. The theme is President Trump's contract with the American voter. And the president has done an absolutely fantastic job at fulfilling 70% of those things in the contract that he can do as chief executive. Through his orders and actions, he has nullified virtually 75% of Obama's "I have a pen, I have a phone" attacks on America. But we also we're just sick and tired of hearing all these lies coming out of the left-wing media. So we're going after the media. We're going after the establishment. We're going after Democrat and Marxist war against Donald Trump. We're going after national security and the lies that we hear from the CIA and the FBI and Antifa and civilization jihad. It's unbelievable how they hold Muslims up on a pedestal while they destroy Christianity.
Here's what gets me, Joe.
It's just absolutely shameful.
Exactly. And here's what gets me. Here's what gets me on that theme that you were just talking about, is how the women's movement backs the left. There is no bigger affront to women than Sharia law. And you just can't be that stupid. But this is what we're going to talk about with Stephen COUGHLIN coming up after we have you on, is the fact that all of these threats have been purged from all the manuals for our law enforcement, the FBI, the CIA, everything. And therefore, they have no idea. Ignorance is bliss. And obviously, Common Core has dumbed down everything. I remember when we were at the South Carolina Tea Party Coalition Convention a couple of years ago, you had a little video clip of Lindsey Graham. I call him Lindsey Grahamnesty, but Lindsey Graham, who is the biggest...
I call him Goober.
Yeah, really. But he's the biggest threat to me as far as the Senate, because he's a rhino. And the thing is, someone came up to him and said, "What do you know about Common Core?" And his answer was, "What's Common Core?" I mean, it's unbelievable to me how from the very, very core, no pun intended, of our education system all the way up through our security is being purged of any threat of Islam. And I say Islam, not just radical Islam. It's Islam and Sharia law. We cannot have it in this country. It's incompatible with the Constitution. I'm going to get off my soapbox now.
Hey, Joe, one of the things that I wanted to let the listeners know, and especially any of our listeners that are in the Southeastern Conference region, and I say that because, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina is an easy drive from obviously Virginia, North Carolina, Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, West Virginia, Alabama. All of you that are in the Southeastern region, or the Southeastern Conference, as I like to say right now, because of the national championship, you guys can make it there in 6 to 8 hours very easily. And this is an opportunity to attend a conference that is unique, in my opinion, on two primary fronts. Number one, all of the speakers are highly accessible. This is not a situation like CPAC where you've got, you have the inability as an attendee to meet with these speakers, these subject matter experts that Joe has lined up and has lined up in the past. It's one of the most attractive things about the South Carolina Tea Party Coalition Convention that Donna and I can talk about, and that is no matter who Joe's got on that stage, as an attendee, you've got the ability to actually interact with them one-on-one. That's a beautiful thing. The second thing is this. The second thing is this, Joe. These conventions that you hold are way ahead of the curve. Things that you had in place and speakers that you had on that stage 4, 5, 6 years ago are discussing issues and matters that as an attendee, you will be able to go back to your circle of friends, either in social media or in person with your family and friends, and you will be able to discuss things that are way ahead of the curve, way ahead in advance. Don't you agree, Donna?
Actually, somebody who comes to mind who's way ahead of the curve that we met actually in the South Carolina Tea Party Coalition Convention a few years back was Turning Point USA's Charlie Kirk. I mean, he really...
Well, we met him when he was wearing diapers.
Yes, we did.
He was in diapers at that time when we first met him. And now he's wearing big boy pants, and he is making unbelievable strides.
And what he does is he is a millennial, and he goes into a lot of these places like colleges, like high schools, universities, whatever, and speaks to the fact that you guys, you're being brainwashed by the left because most of these professors are leftists, and Charlie is doing great work in that regard as well.
Big hat tip to you, Joe Dugan, founder and executive director of the the South Carolina Tea Party Coalition and the convention that it has almost every year. Because, sir, it's because of you that all of these great people are accessible. And Donna's exactly right. Charlie Kirk, I remember eating lunch with him one afternoon in the little restaurant that was adjacent to the old convention center. Tell us about this new convention center, Joe.
Well, it's fantastic. It has 1,200 seats available, all on one level, unlike our previous venue. But I want to get back to a point you made, Don, where you talk about the accessibility of speakers. One of the hallmarks of our convention from the very first one is that when I invite a speaker, I invite them to spend at least 2 nights with us. We don't want somebody who's just going to speak for 20 minutes and then leave. And our speakers love it. Because so many friendships have been made and renewed, and they want to talk to the people. And our radio row is a perfect opportunity for people to have interviews, not just the speakers, but the people themselves. And the people who have come each year to this convention, they are better informed on the issues than the United States Congress is. That may sound like an overreach, but it's absolutely true.
I agree with you.
In 2013, I brought a set of DVDs up to Congress and distributed them to selected representatives and senators, and told their staffs that if Agenda 21 comes up in a committee, all you need to do is listen to Dr. Kaufman and Tom DeWeese, and you will know everything that you need to know about Agenda 21, where the Democrats don't know anything. They just follow what they're told to do. And this is one of the problems in education today, is that in our educational system, especially at the higher levels, people are paying $40,000, $50,000 a year to learn how to follow. They're not taught how to think, because if they were taught how to think, they would go running out the door of those institutions as fast as they possibly could, because they would understand, if they could think for themselves, that they are being fed nothing but propaganda.
And, that's true, Joe. And I have seen that.
Absolutely outrageous.
Exactly. And I've seen that actually when my father passed away. My father was born in the early 1900s. When he passed away, I was looking through some of his studies that he did. He was an architect. He went to Stuyvesant High School in New York, which even to this day is an exclusive public high school you got to take an exam to get into, and NYU, which was considered the poor man's Harvard. He did stuff, though, at Stuyvesant High School that would probably be more like a PhD in college today, because all things are doing is dumbed down, because that's, if you look at it, a dumbed down electorate is what's going to keep the government and the big money in power, and that's what's so scary. I want to get back to I want to get back to some of the speakers. You mentioned Tom Fitton earlier, Judicial Watch. I'm
excited about listening to him speak.
And if there's anybody I ever want to actually contribute to, it's Judicial Watch.
Yep.
When the Republican Party sends me stuff saying, please send us money, I send back with a Sharpie.
No, thank you.
I don't think so. It's not happening. But Lieutenant Colonel Buzz Patterson, who carried the nuclear football, we've had him on our show quite a bit. Daniel Greenfield, an author, he's going to be there.
Cool.
And Corey Lewandowski. Speak a little bit about him. Corey Lewandowski, former Trump, obviously was in there during the Trump campaign. I'm looking forward to him speaking as well.
Yeah, right. And he and David Bossie, co-author of their new book, Let Trump Be Trump, should both be there. And a lot of these people that we have invited are also authors as well as patriots. And we're going to set up book signing tables for them, so that if you're interested in reading Dereliction of Duty by Colonel Buzz Patterson, you can probably buy a copy and get it signed by Buzz, and get to talk to him for a few minutes while he's signing your book. But that's not the limit to the accessibility. These people really do. The people that attend these conventions are really the heartbeat of America, and they stand and salute the flag and the Pledge of Allegiance, and with their hands over their hearts, and they love America, and it's tearing them apart to see what is happening to our country, and what it's gonna be like for our grandchildren's grandchildren if we don't get together and fight this liberal media, which tries to indoctrinate everybody through constantly telling lies and deception.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're speaking with Joe Dugan, the founder and the executive director of the South Carolina Tea Party Coalition, and also that convention that we are going to be attending January 20, 21, and 22 in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I mentioned a little while ago, Joe, that you are way ahead of the curve in your selection of guests and speakers, and the attendees.
That's why I'm having you, Don.
Thank you, Joe. I'm Don NEUEN.
And Donna.
All right. But here's the thing. Here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. In January of 2016, Joe Dugan had Donald Trump show up. And that's huge. That's bigly. And the thing is...
Well, that was the second time, Don.
Yeah.
He was there in 2015.
But I remember...
That's when he decided to run.
Ted Cruz being there. I mean, this is, again, you want to be ahead of the curve. I talk about this a lot, ladies and gentlemen. Denise Simon's show, Cowboy Logic Radio, all of the shows that are on Talk America Radio and our affiliates. You know, we try to give you information so that when you go to the water cooler at work the next day, you appear to be more intelligent. And that's what we want. You know, I tap the sources, many of which that Joe Dugan has coming to this convention at the end of January. I tap those sources because I need to appear to be more intelligent than I actually am. And it works. And so people like Colonel Buzz Patterson, Gordon Chang, I'm drawing a blank because you've got the list, Donna. Help me out here with some of these folks. Is Admiral Lyons going to be?
Kevin Jackson this morning.
Ace Lyons,
is Ace going to be there?
Yep. Yeah, he is. And Kevin Jackson, who we
oh yeah, I mean he's one of our
network.
hosts.
Suzanne Shattuck.
Right, I just spoke to him this morning.
I mean, these are great people, and again, they're very accessible. Joe, talk a little bit while we've got a couple of minutes left on any of the listeners that are listening right now that would like to sign up and attend this. Let's lay out the cost involved. Let's lay out the type of rooms that you've got available for these folks, the website. Give these people the information they need to when they stop listening to this show, they go and they sign up and they attend this with us.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say very quickly, we have 3 rules for this convention. The first rule is political correctness is not allowed in the building. The second is we ask all our speakers to take the gloves off and get in there bare-knuckled and tell the truth about what's going on in our country. The third rule is that you have to tell the truth. If you make one little mistake, you don't cross one T, the media is going to be on you like a vulture, and your reputation is going to be smeared, and mine as well, and I'm not going to have my reputation smeared. The cost of this convention, we have 2 levels of admission. One is general admission at $150. That's just $50 a day for this fabulous group of speakers from all over the nation. I don't know where you can get a deal like that. At the VIP level, it's $200, and what you get is preferred seating, but you also get access to the speaker's hospitality suite, and you get free wine, beer, soft drinks, and heavy hors d'oeuvres and other finger foods. There's also a welcoming party scheduled for Friday night that is a get-together for the speakers and our people who sign up for that separately. There's a $50 charge for that. But at all of these things, there are going to be not only extremely accessible speakers, but we are setting up backdrops all over the place, including the Trump bus that you arranged on to have come down to our convention. And we're going to have tremendous opportunities for folks to get their pictures taken with the speakers and their friends that are attending with them. The deal on the hotel is absolutely fantastic, that you can get, and these are all oceanfront rooms with balconies. You can get a 2 queen-size bed efficiency, that's with a full kitchen and full stove, overlooking the ocean, for $63 a night on Friday night and Saturday night. And if you were to come in earlier or stay later on Sunday to Thursday, the price drops to $49 a night.
Damn.
And so it's just incredible. So many of these other events, you can compare the prices of the events, but then you look at the hotels nearby, like SeaTac, and a hotel costs you $260 a night.
I remember that well. And ladies, Joe, here's the amazing thing about those phenomenal rates that you've got. When you start talking about a hotel rate of $69 or $49, not to mention the fact that it's overlooking the Atlantic Ocean, you expect to go into a hotel that smells like curry. And that is not the case with this, ladies and gentlemen. You're getting curry-smelling rates to stay in a resort at Myrtle Beach. Joe, don't you agree with me that there's nothing worse than walking into a hotel and it smells like curry?
Is that politically incorrect enough for you, Joe?
To tell you the truth, Don, I've never entered such a building.
Well, I have, and I'm here to tell you that it's no Esprit. It's not cool.
Don used to drive buses like this. You will smell the
salt air, and please go to our website, South Carolina, all one word, South Carolina Tea Party Coalition.com. You can find bios of each of our speakers along with their pictures on there, as well as information on quotes that we've gotten from different speakers talking about why they selected this convention to speak at. and their past experiences at this convention, and everybody just has a wonderful time. It is like the biggest party in the world for the most conservative people in the world, and the best thinkers and patriots. I don't. Anybody that has ever attended one of these conventions, it's a changing moment in your life. You will never ever forget it. It is the experience of a lifetime, and what a wonderful gift to give your spouse a weekend at the beach and hearing the best speakers in America tell you the truth. What an oddity in today's America that we hear the truth.
It is.
It's a lot of fun.
I want to throw a couple more names out. Kevin Shipp, former CIA officer and anti-terrorism expert. John Guandolo, former FBI counterterrorism
he's heavy.
special agent.
He's a heavy
You
hitter.
see him all over the Fox News channel all the time. And also a bunch of the politichicks there, Anne-Marie Morel and Morgan Brittany. It's just some great stuff. Suzanne Shattuck, as we said, who has a show, Wide Awake on our network. She's going to be speaking. But, Joe, we did speak actually through Suzanne and a couple other folks from the Savannah Tea Party convention and the Savannah Tea Party group. We went down there and spoke one time. And the one thing that we always try to stress as well is when people go to these conventions, you're preaching to the choir. And I understand that. You're speaking to people who are like-minded. But the main thing is you need to get these people inspired, and that's what we're going to try to work for, to go out from that point and talk to other people and spread the word and tell people this is not what's really happening in this country. America should not be vilified. It should be make America great again. Just unfortunately, to coin a phrase.
And we do spend a considerable amount of money on our full-color official programs, so that when people go home, they can point to the picture and short bio of each of the speakers and tell their families and friends and neighbors just how impressed they were with that speaker. And it'll be a great opportunity to familiarize more and more Americans to what is really happening in this country, because you're not hearing about it from the press.
No.
They put blindfolds over your eyes with the stories that they write, and they're not worth reading.
No.
And that's why the press is held in such low regard in this country, because people just don't believe them anymore, and with good reason.
95% is negative against Donald Trump. Joe, unfortunately, we're out of time. But again, Joe Dugan, folks, he's the founder and executive director and producer of the South Carolina Tea Party Coalition Convention. Again, find him at SouthCarolinaTeaPartyCoalition.com. It's at the Crown Reef Convention Center and Beach Resort in Myrtle Beach. We're going to be there January 20th, 21st, and 22nd, just a few weeks from now. Joe Dugan, thanks so much for joining us here on Cowboy Logic Radio. And coming up, we'll be talking to two people that are going to be at this convention as well, Stephen COUGHLIN as well as Gordon Chang. It's coming up next on Cowboy Logic Radio.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. Their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance, yes. When cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. When their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance, yes. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance.
Check us out on the web at cowboylogic.us.
Hello, everyone. I'm Donna Fiducia.
And I'm Don Neuen, and this is Cowboy Logic Radio.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. When their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance, yes. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance.
Welcome back to Cowboy Logic Radio. I'm Donna Fiducia, along with Don NEUEN, who normally at this point blurts out his name because then we never hear from him again for another half an hour, but he's being good because...
I'm being well behaved.
Yes, you are being very well behaved because we have one Stephen COUGHLIN on the line, and this is his inaugural visit to Cowboy Logic Radio. So, Stephen, Don is actually behaving, but I'm not sure how long that's going to last. So let me introduce you. You are a former Joint Chiefs of Staff Intel analyst, a security analyst. You wrote a book called Catastrophic Failure, Blindfolding America in the Face of Jihad. And boy, is that true. And your website, unconstrainedanalytics.org. Unconstrainedanalytics.org. Stephen COUGHLIN, welcome to Cowboy Logic Radio.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Right out of the gate, Donna, I'd like to ask a question.
Okay.
And again, I am behaving myself, ladies and gentlemen, because this is a heavy hitter. Stephen, at what point do you think that Donald Trump, if ever, will label the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization, as I believe it should be?
Well, I think that my deep suspicion is he wants to do that, and he's done that. He's wanted to do that from the beginning. My concern is that when he was engaged in the transition, a lot of the people involved in the Trump transition, I don't think were looking after his best interests. And since that point, he has sometimes been surrounded by people being on his side on one level and actually working against them. You know, for example, we have a national security advisor who came out and said, General McMaster, who has actually contradicted him. And, you know, being a former, I was only a reserve officer, but I was a major. You know, if I was a sergeant and I contradicted the second lieutenant, that's grounds for action. And here you had a sitting lieutenant general openly contradict the commander-in-chief. And so I think that things are moving in a direction that he can do that. I think what we have to get past is some of the people, we'll call it, you know, part of the leadership class of Washington that's just entrenched here, who have different interests and you know, maybe have gotten too friendly with people who fund the Muslim Brotherhood. I'll stop at that. So but I think it ties into how sometimes our national foreign policy establishment doesn't see the world the way the average American does.
And that was
Some
actually...
of them don't even see America.
I was actually going to ask you that as one of my last questions, but I'm glad that Don brought it up first, because the Muslim Brotherhood is one of the organizations that had most of the visits to the Barack Obama White House. And to me, that speaks volumes. And also... what is going on as far, and I guess this is all part of the purging of the U.S. counterterrorism training in all the manuals by the Obama administration. Can you comment about that?
Well, I have to start with some bad news on this, and that the first purgings came actually under the Bush administration, when Secretary of Homeland Security Judge Chertoff put out a memo that banned the use of certain words, and those words, and he got it from a list of prominent American Muslims, which we were heavily trying to suggest were Muslim Brotherhood, and those words were jihad, ummah, caliphate, Sharia law, apostasy, and you know we were trying to point out, even in the Bush administration, if you fight an enemy who says he's fighting jihad according to Islamic law to implement Islamic law, to reestablish the caliphate and govern the ummah, and you say you can't use one of those words, you just had the other side in what we'll call an information battle, information warfare in the information battle space. You just allow the enemy to take the only language that defines who these people are. So that from this point forward, you're no longer actually identifying the threat. You're bringing in some psychologists to talk about, you know, self-motivated jihad. You're bringing in anthropologists to talk about human terrain, and you just created an entire living for a whole bunch of cultural anthropologists on that. And all of a sudden you're coming up with these bizarre psychosocial models, which are just, if I could say, they're nonsense. And what they do is they make people feel like they've created a scientific way of understanding war, what I call it is pseudoscience. And it's what governs our national security apparatus. So, for example, the next time you see a terrorist attack in America, go watch the news. And the battle is to stop talking about what the language is that the terrorist said they did it under the name of, if it's an Islamic terrorist. We'll have a guy who spent an hour on talking to the police about his doing Orlando based on his understanding of Sharia law as a member of ISIS. And yet the whole news cycle early on was to establish leaderless jihad. Was he being influenced from somebody? And it was just all, and it's the imposition of language. And so that's what I think it is.
Can you imagine
Does that answer your
President?
question?
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Can you imagine President Reagan defeating the Soviet Union if he wasn't allowed to use the word communist? I don't see it happening.
Exactly the point. And well, this is exactly the point. We think, I'm working with some people to try to completely recast how the very way we talk about terrorism guarantees that you cannot get to the actual issue. So what I'm getting at is, not only is could President Reagan not fight the Cold War if he couldn't talk about the Soviet Union and the Warsaw Pact and communism, it's that the strategy to defeat America today is based on the very fact that they're going to make sure you can't use the language that defines. And in being denied the ability to define, you cannot target. So the enemy knows that no matter how many people they kill over there, no matter how much the FBI shows this huge effort after the fact of a terrorist attack, the simple fact of the matter is we know that because they've created these intellectual constructs that they've locked themselves in a box, and the terrorists know that their number one mission is to make sure they don't get the key and realize they're just talking nonsense. Now, the reason this is important is because we say terrorist, we look for a shooter. But, you were talking about the Muslim Brotherhood earlier, and a lot of stuff about the Brotherhood in America pivots off the fact that there was something called the Holy Land Foundation case. Are you familiar with that?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, and from that, and one of the documents, the main documents used in that case was the explanatory memorandum, which was the strategic document of the Muslim Brotherhood. Well, I'm going to throw a couple things at you from a political warfare perspective to kind of say, think of it like this, and I'll bet you after you noodle this around in your mind for a day or two, you're going to see it different, and you're going to say, I see this different, and I see it much more clearly. And that is this. We are being told, our national leaders and our media are being told that the Muslim Brotherhood is the modern alternative to Al-Qaeda or ISIS, right? And we have to work with them in order to come up with a resolution. And therefore, the attacks will start. But every time we start talking to the Muslim Brotherhood, what's their solution? Well, if we do what Al-Qaeda says, Al-Qaeda won't attack. Have you ever noticed that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, that falls into something called political warfare. Now, when I say political warfare, I don't mean the term as Republicans fighting Democrats or that. I'm talking about an insurgency model created by Chairman Mao, and it's called the Maoist insurgency model. And what you have is a situation where you have the violent actors, in this instance, the terrorist and the splinters, the terrorist and the far left, like Antifa, because they're starting to emerge in this picture. You see them acting as the violent element in support of a nonviolent, larger insurgency, which is itself nonviolent. And the goal is for the violent actors to get people to talk to the nonviolent actors as a middle ground, constantly shifting the ground to the left or to Islam, if you will. So what happens is, if you read the explanatory memorandum and what they're saying right off the bat, is they're here to establish a civilization alternative to the West. And what does that mean? They're establishing what the political warfare model calls a counter-state that exists and tries to take terrain. But first, before they take terrain, they try to penetrate organizations. They try to penetrate religion. They try to penetrate government. They try to penetrate education. They try to penetrate the media. And once they get control of those things, then they can start pushing. They control the information top level. So if we think of the Muslim Brotherhood not as the moderate alternative to the radical Al-Qaeda, but as the main event, the entity that penetrates and subverts, and the terrorist acts as the one that builds up them as a alternative, then all of a sudden you're negotiating with people who you shouldn't be negotiating with, because you're doing exactly what the whole political warfare model seeks to have happen. I don't know if that was overly wrought, but then what happens is groups like whether it's Antifa with Southern Poverty Law Center and the ACLU, or whether it's Al-Qaeda or ISIS with the Muslim Brotherhood, they're the violent splinters, that splinter movements that help build up the nonviolent insurgency until they're able to execute on their plan. And the problem with that becomes, we look at the terrorism as the main effort. We look at the street riots of Antifa as the main effort. And actually the main effort is a subversion of that top-level nonviolent actor. I always kind of cross my fingers and say, does that make sense? Because sometimes that's a little difficult for people.
Well, it's extremely convoluted, as is almost anything that has to do with Islam. But one of the points that you brought up, I want to just bring up briefly Project Cassandra and the moves by the Obama administration, and even more specifically John Brennan, in which what their concept, which just simply doesn't work, is to work with moderates and try to convince the media, the mainstream people, the American people, that the best thing that we can be doing is not battling an enemy, but rather trying to placate and work with the moderates, like in Hezbollah. And I wanted to get your thoughts briefly on what is finally being broken in some segments of the news, and that is this Project Cassandra that started during the Bush administration and then continued into the Obama administration until, in my opinion, it was completely squelched by great individuals that were working in the FBI, the DEA, the DHS, the CIA, all of these investigations under this massive umbrella that we're terming Project Cassandra. But it all had, in my opinion, and you're the expert, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but it all had to do with Hezbollah and the funding of Hezbollah in Lebanon, and the fact that guys like John Brennan were sitting here going, "Hey, you know what? There's all these moderates that are in this theater that we need to be placating with and creating warm and fuzzy moments with."
Well, this goes back to the whole question of being trapped by our own narrative. Let's just assume for the beginning of this discussion that Brennan is just misled, and that's giving up a lot, because I think you can make arguments that there's a malevolence there. The word moderate is a word that does not exist in terms of Islam in the Muslim world. Now, I'm not trying to say to you that there are nobody. If you run up to somebody who's an evangelical Christian and you say, "Are you a moderate evangelical?" they're going to say, "Well, I could be a moderate Republican, I could be a moderate conservative, or a moderate liberal." And all of a sudden you realize that the word moderate is a term that applies to a certain type of understanding of the political spectrum that doesn't really even work in the religious spectrum. You either believe or you don't believe. You're either observant or you're not observant. So even friends of ours in the Muslim world say, please stop using the word moderate. But we slaved ourselves to a model that talks about moderate Islam, and from the very beginning, because that does not even exist, what's the opposite of a moderate Muslim? An extremist Muslim. So all of a sudden we're talking about moderation and extremism. Well, that all of a sudden then becomes something that, guess what we're not talking about? We're not talking about, does Islam say what Islam says? Now, relating to Hezbollah, I think the problem becomes, and this becomes something that I think people who are on the conservative side have to take a deep breath and start to recognize a couple of things. Because one of those things is, and I'm talking as much about ISIS as I am Hezbollah and Cassandra, is I think a lot of times you could see Senator McCain writing gunshot in the Middle East on half the things we were only blaming Obama for. And I think that you take a look at the Iran deal. The Iran deal itself happened at a time where the Republicans are the ones that made sure that President Obama's Iran deal would go through. And I think that we should understand that Iran deal a couple years ago in the context of Cassandra, and the fact that a lot of our people, because they just simply refuse to see this issue as it really is, all we have to do is get the leadership of Hezbollah's speeches. When they give them, let's make a rule. We'll only take the speeches they give when they're in front of 10,000 people, so that this is a public event. And we'll make sure only our translators translate them that are acceptable to the people who we're to show them to. And, will be the first, will it be the 500th time you see them talk about death to America? And, the other part of it is, once you're talking about Hezbollah, because I think I assume this, but I should get explicit, Hezbollah is Shiite. Shiites are governed by Ayatollahs. Mm-hmm. Ayatollahs look to Iran as the center of their power. And the idea that people can make a decision not to understand that is what's going on is crazy. So we take a look at what's going on in Latin America, where we're seeing a huge convergence. You look at some of the murders that go on among these drug cartels that are not Muslim, and they're increasingly looking like something you see from ISIS. Have you noticed that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting.
They come
and
through
what you're seeing
there into this country. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, yes, absolutely. What you're seeing is, I think that there's a heavy control of the drug trade by the Islamic, the radical, the jihadi entities is a better way of putting it, the ones who want the destruction of the West, and countries that may be covertly hostile to America. Because not all of our quote-unquote allies, I think, really are our allies. And some of the people we've identified as enemies aren't really our enemies.
If I'm not mistaken, sir, isn't the vice president of Venezuela a Middle Eastern Muslim, as well as a huge drug runner?
I actually, you stumped me there. I did not know that. Is he?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, he is. Hey, let me ask you this. We have Frank Gaffney on our network as well, Secure Freedom Radio, and he often refers to things as civilization jihad. That's basically what you're talking about here.
Yes.
One of my questions was, is there such a thing as moderate Islam? You've kind of answered that. But what I'd like to know is, do you think there's a learning curve here for Donald Trump? You got H.R. McMaster still in there. And again, this might be one of the reasons why the Muslim Brotherhood is not outlawed yet. Do you feel that he's trying to get more of the people behind him before he starts to take these more drastic steps? I kind of feel that's the case because he's not stupid, but he obviously is not a politician either. And there's a huge learning curve there that might hopefully in the next coming 2, 3, and 4 years of his first term possibly be able to. I mean, at this point, he's going against ISIS. Supposedly that's been reduced, and whether they've just laying low or not, I don't know. But he's certainly deteriorated ISIS somewhat by all these attacks. But do you feel it's more of a learning curve for Donald Trump that maybe might lead to the outlawing of the Muslim Brotherhood down the road?
Well, I think he got them right when he was running for president, and I think that he allowed himself to be surrounded by people who are going to tell him that. My problem with, for example, ISIS being defeated isn't that we haven't seen things on the ground that look like they've taken a serious hit, but it's the fact that the people explaining it to him in his inner circle are the same people who are saying the same thing over and over again. You know, when I give a presentation on Islam on the Brotherhood and these groups, I take an article from 2005 by a guy named Fuad Hussein, an article published in Der Spiegel in English, where he spent a couple years in jail with a senior Al-Qaeda leader at the time. And he, in the 2005 article, lined out the phases of Al-Qaeda and then ISIS. And he said that the fourth phase would be 2010 to 2013. Now, this is 8 years before he laid down the schedule. He said this, and that's when they were going to bring about the fall of Arab governments. And, of course, exactly at that time is when we saw the Arab Spring. And I will say this, I was the person who was briefing on Capitol Hill saying in 2010, watch out. This thing that's going to be called a peace movement and a freedom movement is going to be something run by the Brotherhood. And the entire time the Arab Spring was going on, I had to tell them it's not a spring, it's a Brotherhood takeover. And now finally, the history on it now is, well, look, it was a freedom movement that was taken over by the Brotherhood. Well, that's not true. They said that the fifth phase would start in 2013, go to 2016, and that's when the Islamic State and the Caliphate would be declared. Well, that's exactly when it was declared. And they said 2016 would be a period, moving forward, would be a period of total confrontation. Well, that's when in December 2015, and the Islamic calendar lines up with that qualifying as 2016, is we saw the starting of what happened in San Bernardino. We saw the French attacks. We saw a whole lot of things start up then. And what's my point here? My point here is the same people who are telling President Trump today that they're on the run are the same people who have been saying, according to the news cycle, and not according to facts on the ground from the very beginning, we're fighting Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda's on the ground. Al-Qaeda's retreating there. They've gone to ground. Al-Qaeda's resurging. Al-Qaeda has to be stopped again. Oh, we have to do this. It just keeps going around and around. And what we see with this thing I gave you about phase 4, phase 5, and phase 6 is Al-Qaeda said in 2002 exactly where they would be, and they were exactly on time. So do I think that they've been routed out of parts of Syria? Yes. Do I think that they've been moved to other places like the Sinai? Yes. Do I think they've been defeated? Not even close. Mm-hmm. Do I think they'll reemerge through forms of terrorism? You know, part of the decline of terrorism here for a period of time was they were consolidating there. Now that we've knocked them out of Syria or put them on a serious disadvantage in Syria, we should be expecting to see a rise of that stuff. And, my great fear is there's something called the Klein memo that came out last summer, where there is serious concern that just as groups like the Muslim Brotherhood work with groups like the Southern Poverty Law Center at the counter-state movement at political warfare level, we're seeing that groups like Antifa are coordinating with groups like ISIS, and they've been coordinating their events in Europe that way. I am greatly concerned that something like what happened in Las Vegas might be something that might be an indicator of that, but that's just a suspicion, not a...
Yeah, it's kind of weird the way that we don't hear much about that. I was in New York media for some 30 years, and it just never ceases to amaze me how left everybody has gone, many of which are people I worked with. And just as a real quick side here, when that guy mowed down all those people in Lower Manhattan a few months ago and got out yelling Allah Akbar, 2 seconds after, the NYPD gives a press conference, and they said he made a statement when he exited the car. He didn't make a statement. He yelled Allah Akbar. I mean, come on. And then, it's a lone wolf. It doesn't matter. This is what we're giving light to. I believe, as you said, it started under George Bush, but it got put on overdrive, big time, hyperspace, with Barack Obama. And that's what scares me. If you have a closing comment, we've got about a minute left.
Oh, well, I was going to say, take, for example, remember, I'm saying that the other side plans to defeat us by controlling the way we talk about by controlling the very way we talk about things. And one of the ways is that, look, when Al-Qaeda came out in their first copy of Inspire magazine, which is something published in English, no less, and said that they were going to adopt a form of jihad against the West called individual jihad, which is a form of jihad. Okay, a doctrinal form of jihad is when we create the word lone wolf. And when we could have looked at individual jihad in a doctrinal driver so we could identify things before they happened, which I did many times, we decided lone jihads were basically leaderless jihads that had people and we brought in psychiatrists, like a guy named Sageman. And so the whole point is the control of the narrative is total control of to control how we talk about it controls the decisions we make. And they know that they're going to win the war so long as they control that narrative.
Excellent. Stephen, Donna and I look so forward to meeting you in the next couple of weeks at the South Carolina Tea Party Coalition Convention. It's going to be a real treat to hear you get up on that stage and speak to us. It's going to be an honor to be able to meet with you and work with you at that convention. I'm really looking forward to it. Donna, we are out of time. Who do we have coming up next?
All right, Stephen, again, thank you. We'll be talking to Gordon Chang after the break, who will also be at the South Carolina Tea Party Coalition Convention. And we'll be talking China, and Rocket Man coming up next.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. When their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire.
Welcome to Myrtle Beach, one of the most beautiful strands of sand on the East Coast. My name is Joe Dugan, and I'm the founder and executive producer of the South Carolina Tea Party Coalition Convention. This is our 6th anniversary this year, and we've gone to a new resort, the Crown Reef, to enable more people to come, enjoy our conference, and the beautiful weather here in Myrtle Beach. This year, I can promise you, although we have had outstanding conferences in the past, this convention will be our best ever. The theme for our convention will be President Trump's contract with the American people. It's the contract that you, the people, voted for the president to uphold. We will sing the praises of those who have upheld it and call out those who are standing in its way as he tries to make America great again. So come down, hear it firsthand. Our speakers are down here for 2 days. They want to meet you. We have a huge radio row. They want to interview you. We want to hear from you, folks, and we will give you some ideas to take home with you and spread throughout your neighborhoods. Mark your calendars now. It's an easy date to remember. It starts January 20th, just 1 year to the day from President Trump's inauguration, and we run from the 20th to the 22nd. Go to our website, SouthCarolinaTeaPartyCoalition.com. You can look at all the speakers that we're going to have this year, as well as look at speakers that we've had in past years. We're looking forward to seeing you all, folks, and please say a personal hello when you stop down here at our convention.
Hurry! Last year's event was near sellout, and this year's will be bigger than ever. So don't wait until it's too late. Book your room and convention package now. Go to SouthCarolinaTeaPartyCoalition.com. Excellent sponsorship opportunities are still available, so you can reach and equip the grassroots in our large exhibit hall and meeting rooms. Whether you wish to host an intimate meet and greet, a press conference, or a book signing, we have the space for you. This event will draw national media again this year. There's no better event for energizing and equipping the conservative grassroots than the South Carolina Tea Party Coalition Convention on Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Go to SouthCarolinaTeaPartyCoalition.com. Be there.
You're listening to your local news source, WLBB, News Talk 1330 and FM 106.3.
Hey everybody, they're back on again!
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. When their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glare. Back when the West was really wild, Cowboys didn't dance.
And welcome back to Cowboy Logic Radio. I'm Donna Fiducia, along with Don Neuen. And as we continue to highlight some of the great speakers that are going to be at the South Carolina Tea Party Convention, we bring in our friend, Gordon Chang. Very proud to call him our friend. We've had him on, of course, Cowboy Logic Radio, and he's been on many, many shows that you've seen all over the place, including the Fox News Channel, all the major news channels, in fact, MSNBC, CNN. Writings on China and North Korea have appeared in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Weekly Standard, National Review, Barron's, all kinds of things. He's spoken at major universities and appears regularly, as I said, on all the major news channels, and also on the John Batchelor Show on WABC Radio, if you listen in New York City, as well. And Gordon, welcome back to Cowboy Logic Radio.
Oh, well, thanks so much, Donna. And we're so looking forward, Lydia and I are so looking forward to seeing Don and you at the Tea Party Convention. So that'll be great.
Can't wait.
Can't wait. We absolutely can't wait. So, Gordon, let's get right to it. What's the deal between President Trump and Rocket Man?
Hold on a second, Donna. Clearly, Donald Trump has let the entire planet know that his button is bigger than Kim's.
Yes. Does he have a bigger button than Kim or not?
Neither one of them have a button. There is no button.
Weigh in on that, Gordon.
No, you're right. There is no button, actually. Yeah, there is no button. In the United States, we have a package carried by an officer who's always with President Trump, known as the football. I don't know what is the command and control in North Korea, but it's probably Kim Jong-un picking up the phone, talking to his generals. But in any way, everyone knows that our arsenal is far larger, far more capable. But the North Koreans are getting to the point where they will be able to hit any American city with a nuke. We know they've got a missile that can range the entire U.S. homeland. The only things that they haven't figured out are their guidance and heat shielding. But if they're thinking about an electromagnetic pulse device, which they've actually publicly talked about, they don't need guidance. They don't need heat shielding. All they need to do is explode a device in space, and they can fry a lot of electronics in the U.S. So they are a threat already.
You know, that's what really scares me, Gordon, is the EMP, the electromagnetic pulse. And coming up in the South Carolina Tea Party Convention, Dr. Peter Vincent Pry is going to be there, and we've had him also on our show. He's really the foremost authority on EMPs. Another person that's going to be there is Buzz Patterson, who basically carried the nuclear football for Bill Clinton and claims in a book that Clinton lost the code something like 3 times. I'm assuming that we really have no idea what the little rocket man has in Korea, or North Korea, but I'm sure there's not a checks and balances like a nuclear football like we have here. And that's what really scares me, because this guy is really unstable.
Well, yeah, his regime is certainly unstable. You know, we know this because all the executions. Kim has killed about 160 senior officials since he took over in December 2011. In February of last year, there were a series of incidents all together within the space of about 4 weeks, which showed real problems. There was the execution of Kim Jong-nam, his elder half-brother, with VX, a chemical agent, at the Kuala Lumpur airport. There was the demotion and detention of the Minister of State Security, General Kim Won-hong, the execution of 5 of his senior officials, and a few other events. You put that all together, and it means that the regime is in flux. And although Kim is certainly the most powerful and does most of the time look in control, I'm not so sure that that's true all of the time. And when he has the ability to cause great damage, yes, every American needs to be concerned.
Gordon Chang, what are your thoughts on the recent articles over the past roughly week, maybe week and a half, in which Kim is now pushing for a dialogue with South Korea? And then I believe it was yesterday, it may have been Friday, that I read something where Trump is now saying that he would be more than willing to open up dialogue with Kim.
Yeah, those are really important questions. Kim Jong-un, in his New Year's address, hinted that sanctions were really starting to bite the regime. Those, of course, are UN sanctions that have been put in place through pressure from the United States, plus also President Trump's unilateral sanctions. So that is a force which is motivating Kim to talk to the South Koreans because he wants their cash. He's not getting as much cash from his traditional sources, thanks to the Trump administration. And so therefore, he has to reach out to the South Koreans. The other thing that we have to keep in mind is that North Korea has a 7-decade-old playbook. And it really starts with North Korea refusing to talk to South Korea, then a dramatic overture like we heard on New Year's Day, and then, demand for big concessions from South Korea. And if South Korea doesn't give the money, well, then there are North Korean tantrums. And when North Korea has a tantrum, sometimes people die. So this is going to be a consequential time. We've got the Olympics next month. They're going to be held in South Korea. The North Koreans are going to try to use that to get out of President Trump's sanctions. This is going to be consequential.
Trump has said that, and many people are speculating that nothing's going to be done, if anything at all, until after the Olympics. But talk a little bit, if you would, about the South Korean president, who seems to be much more liberal, and he has made overtures to Kim, and to me, that's scary because usually it goes the way of socialism and communism, not the other way around.
Yeah, Moon Jae-in, who has been president since last May in a special election, is very much one who believes in the sunshine policy. Matter of fact, he was the author of an even worse policy called the peace and prosperity policy, and that is a real problem for us as we go forward. Now Moon is president, and so he has got a position where he can actually effectuate these policies. And he's going to try and do everything he can. But the good thing about this, Donna, is that he is restrained by Trump. When Moon became president last May, they had all sorts of plans in Seoul about how to put money into the hands of Kim Jong-un. And they were just shocked that the Trump administration and the Obama administration before it actually sat on them, preventing them from going forward with their policies. So Moon is boxed in, and he's boxed in by some very effective American diplomacy. So while Moon would give away the store, he's not going to be able to because of the policies in the White House.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're speaking with who we consider to be the authority on all things of the Orient, and that is Gordon Chang. He will be with us down at the South Carolina Tea Party Coalition Convention, January 20, 21, and 22. We are looking forward, as always, to spending time with him and getting to see he and his wife. But, Gordon, back to North Korea. A lot of people are thinking that everybody needs to just kind of sit tight until after these Winter Olympics in South Korea. What do you think could happen that could push Kim into doing something devastating prior to those Olympics? Or do you think he's going to sit tight?
I'm really bad at predicting what Kim will and won't do. But there are a couple things we know. We know that on Tuesday, when the South Korean and the North Korean delegations meet at Panmunjom in the demilitarized zone, the North Koreans are going to start a dialogue asking for a number of things. So, for instance, relief from sanctions, the resumption of inter-Korean projects like the Kaesong Industrial Complex, and also aid. And the South Koreans, because President Trump is boxing them in, won't be able to come forward. And that means North Korea is probably going to be upset. And that means they can do anything, especially because they've got leverage. South Koreans want peace in the run-up to the Winter Olympics next month. And so this is going to be a very difficult time. You know, nobody can sit tight, especially the United States, in this period, because we've got to monitor exactly what's going on. It's going to be, you know, a struggle day by day. And I think the Trump administration is up to it because they've been very focused on North Korea and South Korea in the run-up to these talks. So this is where I think the administration has done a pretty good job in making sure that the South Koreans don't run wild.
My intel, or I should say our intel analyst, Denise Simon, has used a catchphrase numerous times with regard to North Korea and our close eye that we have on them. And she basically says a leaf cannot fall in North Korea without us knowing about it. Do you feel that's an accurate assessment?
I would like that to be the case. Unfortunately, I don't think that we know as much as we need to about North Korea's weapons programs. You know, as we've seen over the last 3-4 years, and especially in the last 2 years, the North Koreans have made great progress on their missile and nuclear weapons programs, progress that has surprised our analysts, as that interesting New York Times article mentioned just a day ago. You know, clearly people in Washington have been taken by surprise by the rapid progress. And part of that is because the North Koreans have been getting help from their friends in Beijing, and we have not been willing to acknowledge that. So I wish that we knew about every leaf that fell, but I think that's being a tad bit optimistic.
I didn't want to hear you say that, but thank you.
I didn't either. All right, let's talk about China. What's going on there? Because at first, when Trump spoke with China, there was a whole situation where they pulled back some of the coal that was going to North Korea. And then was that just kind of like a one-time thing? As far as energy is concerned, I heard the Chinese were buying some of our coal. What is the latest as far as that and putting the sanctions from China onto North Korea?
Well, the Chinese, as they have in the past, have told us that they're complying 100% with North Korea sanctions, but they haven't. In last year, they said that they were stopping coal purchases from North Korea on February 18th. But they were buying coal throughout the rest of the spring in apparent violation of UN sanctions. Also, they've been transferring oil to the North Koreans ship to ship in violation of the September 2017 UN sanctions. We know that last month, a North Korean ship under UN sanctions, in other words, not permitted to visit any other country, turned on its transponder in a Chinese port near Shanghai. So the Chinese have been violating these sanctions across the board, and the United States has not held them to account. So we always know that the Chinese are going to be villains, but this is a problem of administration after administration not making the Chinese understand the costs of doing this. We have not been willing to impose those costs. And unfortunately, the Chinese are going to continue to violate sanctions and to support the North Koreans in dangerous ways until we make the Chinese stop.
And bolster their military as well, which is very scary. Again, we're speaking with Gordon Chang, who is really the foremost authority, in my opinion, on anything going on in Asia and things to do with China and North Korea. But Gordon, also, we have to bring in Iran here. Thanks to President Obama and the Iranian nuke deal, which is not anything but a giveaway of $150 billion, in my opinion, to the Iranians. This is a connection that can't be overlooked because it's going to fast track Iran with its connection to North Korea as far as nukes are concerned. Am I correct in that?
Yes. Iran pays an estimated $2.5 to $3 billion a year to North Korea for their various forms of cooperation. Clearly missiles and nukes, and maybe other things as well, such as chemical weapons. And this is something that the Obama administration was not willing to deal with. And so at some point, we've got to view this not as an Iranian problem, not as a North Korean problem, but as a problem of both rogue states. And we also got to remember that with regard to both Iran and North Korea, we've got China in the background causing troubles. So we've got an integrated problem, and we have failed to acknowledge that. And so therefore, we are going to suffer setback after setback until we deal with the root cause of all of this.
Well, and those are big players. I mean, China, Iran, don't forget Russia. Pakistan is now in this mix with North Korea. These are some bad hombres. Gordon,
well,
Donna likes my Spanish.
Definitely about that. Yeah, definitely about that. But we also got to remember that with our friends, India, Japan, Vietnam, the NATO countries, we're much more powerful than all of those bad hombres. And yes, they provide certainly a challenge, maybe even an existential challenge, but we're stronger than they are. What we're lacking, the only thing that we're lacking, Don, is political will. We get a little political will, we can do this. You got to go back to the 1970s when everyone said we had to have détente with the Russians because the Russians were mighty. Well, Ronald Reagan came around and said no. He was rejecting the Nixon-Kissinger view that we had to just accommodate the Soviet Union. And we all know what happened. So therefore, we're at that same point where we look at the Chinese and the Russians and the Iranians and the North Koreans and say, yeah, they're big and powerful. Well, yeah, they are. But we're bigger and we're more powerful. And we need to understand that we've got overwhelming leverage. The one thing we need is a Reagan to use it.
Well, I always say, no accommodante, bad hombres.
Well, you just agreed with Donald Trump, Gordon, that we got a bigger button. So go ahead, Don, has another question.
Gordon, one of the things that I have always probably been most concerned about, even over a nuke with regard to North Korea, is the massive amount, if not world's largest amount, of bio and chemical weapons that they've got facing South Korea right now and much of that peninsula. What are your thoughts on that and the upcoming Olympics? I mean, that to me would be the biggest catastrophe in quite some time.
Last year, one of the North Korean soldiers who defected across the demilitarized zone had the antibodies to anthrax in his bloodstream. And that means that the North Korean military is preparing to fight in a battlefield where there is anthrax. We've always got to be concerned about North Korea's other weapons of mass destruction, its chemical and biological agents.
When I worked at the Fox News Channel, we had a couple anthrax attacks, and that was a good, probably want to say in the early 2000s. That's something we haven't heard much about until recently again, which is also very scary. I mean, David Asman used to carry around the antibodies for anthrax in his little pouch there because it was that imminent, and there was stuff being sent to the Fox News Channel that did contain anthrax, and that was something that was my first encounter really with any kind of terrorism after 9/11, which is extremely scary.
Well, I'm just real glad in my line of business, all I do is carry the banned anthrax.
Yeah, really. Gordon, what about, though? I don't think he's I think he's nuts, but I don't think that he's crazy enough to do something to the Olympics. Do you?
Well, I don't think so, because he's now in peace mode. But if he doesn't get what he wants, who knows what he'll do? They operate at a very different logic than we do. And even though I look at this and study North Korea all the time, my predictions are under 50% correct. So right now, we don't know what he would do. We do know, however, that in the 1988 Summer Olympics in Seoul, which was South Korea's coming out party, the North Koreans brought down a South Korean jetliner, killing all 115 on board before the event in order to disrupt it. And so the North Korean regime is capable of horrible acts in connection with sporting events. So, Donna, I don't think that they would do that for a number of reasons. but they do operate in a very different universe than we do, and we always have to be 100% prepared. North Koreans can kill us with their nukes, they can kill us with their chemical and biological agents, and they can kill us with conventional weaponry. They're just dangerous. The regime is dangerous.
Well, and they're also quite well versed at cyber warfare, and that's something that we don't talk about quite enough. But Gordon, let's get into something that you are right about like 110% of the time, and that's China. What are your thoughts right now on the immediate relationship between the United States, the Trump administration, and China right now, as opposed to it was, say, a year ago and 18 months ago when Barack Obama was in office? Where are things at right now?
Yeah, President Trump, at least until the release of the National Security Strategy last month, really didn't have a China policy. What he had was a Korea policy, and his relations with Beijing were quote-unquote good when he thought that the Chinese were helping on North Korea and were cooperative, and Trump was tough on them when he thought that they were dragging their feet. Now, with the National Security Strategy, that identifies China and Russia as rivals, as having malign influence, competitors, and so therefore we're starting to see a real China policy on the part of the administration. That's much better than what we've had in previous administrations, both Republicans and Democrats, because we're getting an appreciation of just the challenge that Beijing is posing to us. You know, Xi Jinping, the Chinese ruler, just told the Chinese troops, be prepared to die. And that, to me, is ominous.
Yeah, I didn't like reading that either. And what I couldn't figure out is, with regard to what did he tell his troops prepare to die? Is he anticipating some type of a heavy situation going on with North Korea? Is he anticipating what could be considered World War III, in which all of a sudden we've got China and the United States going head to head? What did he mean by that, Gordon?
Yeah, I don't know. I thought this was more than just the general be prepared to fight, which you'd have any commander-in-chief telling his troops. The thing about China, though, is that we hear these warnings periodically. This one a bit more dire than others. But one thing we do know, Don, and that is we know that Chinese troops are again building up in the border areas with India, so we could very well expect some sort of Chinese provocation there. But we also know that China is fortifying its artificial islands in the South China Sea, and, you know, it's continuing its support for North Korea. China can challenge us at any number of different spots. The Japanese know this from yesterday when a Chinese Coast Guard vessel came within the territorial waters of the Senkaku Islands in the East China Sea that both Japan and China claim, but which Japan administers. So we are seeing Chinese forceful tactics in an arc across China from India in the south to South Korea in the north.
Do you see a possibility of Chinese bullets and North Korean bullets flying back and forth with ground troops, with actually those two countries going against each other?
Anything is possible, but I wouldn't think so because China has been using North Korea to keep us off balance. What I can see, though, is North Korea committing a provocation, the United States becoming involved in a conflict in North Asia, and China using that opportunity to, for instance, take over Scarborough Shoal by not only controlling it with its vessels, but actually starting to reclaim it. In other words, to make permanent its 2012 act of aggression. There are a number of things China can do in connection with problems in North Korea. And, you know, as you point out, anything is possible. We could see provocations and problems across that North Korea-China border. But I generally tend to think that the Chinese will allow the North Koreans to give us a hard time and use that as some sort of distraction for them to make gains elsewhere.
Yeah, use us use them as leverage. That makes sense. Gordon, we have just a couple minutes left. If you were going to talk to Donald Trump about what he should do in this region, what would you tell him?
I think the United States needs to make it unambiguously clear that we will defend our allies and friends, including Taiwan, and that China will pay costs for dangerous behavior. We haven't heard those words from an American president for more than 4 decades. We need to hear it now because the Chinese have to be deterred.
Wow.
All right, and one last question for you, Gordon. At the South Carolina Tea Party Coalition Convention that will be taking place January 20, 21, and 22 in lovely Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, where you and your wife will be joining Donna and I, hopefully for dinner one night, I need to know what you're going to discuss. What's on your agenda and your topics that you're going to be hitting those people with and sharing with great patriots?
The overall message is going to be that the United States, its friends and partners, face challenges from China, Russia, and their paws, such as North Korea and Iran. This is a challenge that we can't shrink from. This is the challenge that Ronald Reagan confronted. We can prevail, but we need to have political will that we haven't seen from an American president since Reagan. That is the message that Americans need to hear.
And I cannot wait to sit in that audience and listen to you speak, sir. It is absolutely a thrill that you're going to be there. Donna, tell the listeners where they can find Gordon Chang.
All right, you can find him at gordonchang.com. Also, he's a columnist at the Daily Beast. He is a columnist at the Daily Beast. He's also authored many books on the topics of life in Asia and the way things are going, China, North Korea. His writings have appeared on China and North Korea in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Far Eastern Economic Review, and many, many others. He's also written many books on the topic. And on Wednesday nights, he co-hosts Asia Night on WABC Radio in New York City with the John Batchelor Show. That's WABC, my favorite radio station when I lived up there. Gordon, again, thank you so much for joining us here on Cowboy Logic Radio, and we will see you at the South Carolina Tea Party Coalition Convention. By the way, folks, it's South Carolina Tea Party Coalition.com. It's going to take place January 20th, 21st, and 22nd at the Crown Reef Convention Center and Beach Resort in Myrtle Beach. Don and I will be there. I am supposed to MC most of this whole weekend.
And I'll be doing all the colorization.
Yes, you
will.
While
you're trying to, I will interrupt you while you try to MC.
That's going to be really interesting. And I want to leave with a slogan, a saying, which I usually always do. This one coming from Plato, the great Greek philosopher. One of the penalties for refusing to participate in politics is that you end up governed by your inferiors. I think that's pretty prophetic, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would. And I got to tell the listeners that I, too, when I was a youngster, used to play with Play-Doh. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next week. Good night.
Oy.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. Their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance, yes. When cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. When their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance.
Check us out on the web at cowboylogic.us.